It is an awesome pick. I tell you, all of us in the Senate on the Judiciary Committee are ecstatic. Any one of the top three would have been good, but Gorsuch is just that was my favorite. I have to say now. It's easy to say now.
Yeah,
but he really was.
What are the chances that this is going to pass through quickly and he is going to be confirmed, or do you think this is going to be a long fight? We're already hearing from some of the Democrats. They're starting to say he's outside of the mainstream. That we're hearing some of that pushback. Is there going to be a lot of pushback on this one?
Well, I just think the Democrats were saying that they were going to oppose him before he was even named. They were just going to oppose any pick by the president. And so you got to take that with a big grain of salt. Judge Gorsuch was approved here unanimously in 2006. And if you look at his body of work, you look at the what he's ruled on, as White House counsel was saying, there's just not a clunker among them. He's smart and good. And I think the other side is having a hard time coming up with reasons to oppose him. But they will, and I think that they'll pull out all the stops. I assume he'll be on Capitol Hill this week and next, and then hearings will start in Judiciary Committee, and Democrats will probably try to slow it down as much as they can.
Senator Cruz has said that the nuclear option is still on the table. What do you think about that statement, and what do you think about the nuclear option?
I hope we don't have to go there. As we know, the nuclear option has been pulled for the president's executive calendar with the exception of the Supreme Court picks. If we did have to pull it for the Supreme Court, all that would do would be basically to return the Senate to where it was and has traditionally been prior to 2003, when nobody ever filibustered a court pick. So I hope we don't have to do that, but in the end, we may have to. Obviously, we want to preserve the legislative filibuster.
Okay, so let's shift a little bit now to your concerns about the executive orders and the travel restrictions that the president has instituted. You voiced some concern. What is the difference between blocking the Syrian refugees that President Trump has done and what President Obama did with Iraqi refugees a couple of years ago? What are the differences there?
Well, President Obama reacted to a specific threat. There were a couple of instances of people being caught who had been part of the Iraqi refugee flow.
Right.
And so he was reacting to a specific threat at that time. My biggest issue with this is the 7 countries named. We haven't had terrorist attacks from them as much as we have with countries that weren't named. Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, UAE. These are countries that have had big problems with terrorism, and so that list of 7 wasn't exactly written on stone tablets, and so I just don't know how that was arrived at. And obviously the rollout of it was a bit. It didn't go as it should have been. There wasn't the consultation with DHS and other agencies of government.
So do you believe that as time goes on, is the administration going to be able to clarify enough for the American people that that some of these protesters are going to be quieted down? Because we keep hearing the word ban. Even the administration had used it. Right. Are they starting to learn a lesson here about how they roll things out and how they have to be very careful with who they consult, because the backlash has been huge?
Yes, and I hope they have, and I think they have. I mean, with regard to green card holders, it never should have applied to green card holders. They corrected that. You're right, kind of ban has been thrown around loosely. I wouldn't argue that this is a ban at all.
Right.
It is, nor is it a Muslim ban. Like I said, I think it is imprecise in terms of the countries it targets. We obviously ought to be concerned about some of the other countries that aren't on the list, and we ought to do extreme vetting. But it needs to be rolled out better. I think they've learned from this, and if the rollout of the Supreme Court pick and the way that was done is any indication, then they're getting better. That one, the White House counsel called every member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and others in leadership, asked our advice. They went through a methodical process and have a great pick, and I think they'll have an easier time with confirmation because of that.
So as you watch the first week or so of this presidency, what is your impression so far of this administration and their ability to work with Congress?
In terms, let's just look at the cabinet picks. It's a stellar cabinet. It really is. They've consulted a lot of people, and they got good picks, and we've been moving them through, and I think the Senate will be able to move every member of the cabinet through. It's taking us longer than it should because the Democrats are blocking some of them. But we're getting them through, so that's one really good thing. Some of the executive orders with regard to regulations, I've been cheering. It's been a long time waiting. Some of the immigration orders with regard to getting back to working with local law enforcement and coordination and prioritization for deportations, those are all great things. So that's great. But then, some of the talk about tariffs and trade and NAFTA would negatively impact Arizona depending on how they're carried out. So there are some things that concern me, but, it's with any president. When President Bush came in, I opposed No Child Left Behind and the prescription drug benefit. There will be some pushback from the Senate and the House on some areas, but by and large, we've seen some good activity.
All right, final question on the Supreme Court. One of the things that has been bounced around is that this is not going to change the balance of the court by bringing in this justice. But if someone like a Ruth Bader Ginsburg or one of the more liberal justices were to step down and President Trump were to decide on the next nominee, that might be when the Democrats would fight tooth and nail. Any truth to that, do you think?
Yes. There's some talk here that the Democrats will save their ammunition for the pick that will shift the balance on the court. This simply maintains the ballot that existed, last year before Scalia passed on. So, yeah, there is some talk of that, but I don't know. Some of the folks here who are, like I said, they announced it before the pick was even named. I don't know if they can help themselves. I think that they may insist that they, block this one, and then the nuclear option may be polled, and then they won't have anything to say next time.
Right.
So I would certainly advise them, boy, when you look at this pick and you look at the body of cases that he's ruled on, you look at the kind of jurist he is, I would hope that they would do more, what they did in 2006.
Right.
And just consider him on the merits rather than politically.
Well, Senator, it's always good to talk with you. I appreciate you adjusting your schedule to be with us this morning, and look forward to seeing you next time you're in Arizona.